All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to start by thanking our sponsors because all these events, community events, would not be possible without having these sponsors. So big thank you to them, and especially in the virtual world, we should always try and do our best to see if we can thank them. With that, let's just take a look at it, what we are going to cover today. Sorry, this was a slide after lunch. Typically, when people get to sleep, they try and take them up. My name is Amit Vasu. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm a solution architect on Microsoft 365. And that's my picture I just took this morning. And if you wanted to connect with me, that's my Twitter right there. And you can follow me there. What you will learn today is mostly 200 level. I'll keep it very, very basic given the time. I'm not going to go into the admin settings for the live events as well as some of the device settings because you could be a lot more advanced. What we are going to focus today is just mostly using Microsoft Teams for producing your first live event, or if you already have tried it, some of the things that I can provide as a suggestion based on my experience. So we'll talk about some very quick introduction. We'll take a look at the demo, how to schedule it. Now I'm just going to try my best that I could show you because live events requires that you have to be running a desktop, the desktop client. And given I'm attending this meeting over the browser, I'm hoping that I would be able to show you the demo. If not, worst case, I have the images that I can share with you. And towards the end, we'll just take a quick look at all the recommendation. If you have questions and if you can wait till the end, that would be super awesome because I wanted to complete this session in 30 minutes. But if there's something that you want to know because of the context, definitely paste that question in the chat. But again, official Q&A I prefer towards the end, given the time. Okay, so with the Teams live event, users in your organization can be broadcasting video and the meeting content, to the large online audience or your internal audience. Now, in terms of licensing requirement, one of those enterprise licenses, and I'll share the link towards the end, or actually as a part of my slide deck, that will list all the required licenses that you need. Now, in terms of live events, I would call them, for the most part, to simplify it, is an extension to your Teams meetings, existing Teams meeting. Now, the difference between live events and Teams meeting is live events are meant for one-to-many communication, where your host, who's leading the event, then interacts with the audience, that is the participants, is primarily for view-only purpose. So participants on sort of like this Teams meeting that we are having, where you could just simply chat. So similar concept where live events, it's more for presenters to present, and audience on the other hand would be just view the content. And if presenter allowed, they can interact using Q&A. And that's pretty much the concept for the live events. That's a big difference between your Teams meeting versus live events. So if you wanted to take a quick look at the couple of scenarios that we would be using this, is consider this your all hands meeting, like quarterly or monthly all hands meeting, where your CEO or CIO wants to run your all hands meeting, and your large audience, internal employees across various offices can participate and listen to your CEO. Similar thing, if you're a product company and you want your marketing manager, if you wanted to announce a new product, in that case, you can use live events but your audience would be primarily public. You would make it publicly available. You could do that. And then all the external people would then be able to join and take a look at all the new products that you wanted to announce. So these are some of the examples or scenarios that you can take a quick look at. Now, this slide, I'm not going to talk too much. I'll just leave it there so when you download the PowerPoint, you would have access. But the primary difference between your one-on-one call or a group call or meetings on Teams meeting versus Teams live event is, as I said, mostly the Teams meetings are interactive, for between 200 to 350 people that are part of the meeting, versus the live event is more like one-to-many, and it will be high value and formally produced events, as opposed to the team meetings. Those are more collaborative, right? So that's the main difference between Teams meeting versus the live events, if you ever wanted to compare. Now, when it comes to live events, as I said, it's a formally produced event. There are various roles that you need to consider. Now, the very first one is an organizer. Who's the organizer? The person who's scheduling an event becomes an organizer. Now, when it comes to organizer role, that's not the formal role, if you will. Organizer by default gets the producer role. Who are the producers? Because in here, they're the formal roles, and based on your role, you can do certain things in the event. So producer, they are or one person, if in this case, you can host the meeting and ensures attendees have a viewing experience by controlling the media source as to which video gets pushed, which content gets pushed, if Q&A needs to be turned on or off. Things like that would be the role of the producer. So producer decides which content's going live, which video is going live, and if it's time to open Q&A. Presenter, on the other hand, they are responsible for presenting audio and video, right? Like, so they would be the person that would be either sharing their screen by sharing the content, as well as sharing the video if they should decide to do that. Now, in terms of attendee, is just as I said earlier, it's just the viewer. So if they watch the event live or on demand, you could pause and then watch it on demand. And you, depending on how your live event was set up, you can join in as an anonymous, or you need to authenticate. And the only thing that you can do as an attendee is just participate using Q&A. And we'll take a look at that as well. Let's just jump onto it right away. So consider this, and again, as I said earlier, you would, at least as of today, I know Microsoft would be enabling this feature over the tablets, but for now, you must have either Windows or Mac client, right? So you would need to have a Teams client installed or left on your Windows device, like either laptop computer or Mac. Now, to schedule a live event, you will go to your calendar, and under new meeting, there's a live event. I hope that you guys are seeing my screen. Okay. So the PowerPoint, just very quickly, again, I'm sorry, I'm just going to be focused on mine, but PowerPoint would be available on the event site. If not, I'll make sure that Ryan has a way to share with you guys. So to schedule a live event, as I said, you will go to the new meeting, select a live event. We'll say MS365 Holly, Teams event. And here, as I say, that by default, I, as a logged in person, demo user Alex, I'm an organizer. By default, I get the producer role. And I'll show you what's the difference between producer and presenter. As you can see, if I would open it, there's only two roles. And that's what I meant when officially there's only two roles. But because I'm scheduling an event, I also get the organizer role as well. Now here, I can then invite other users. So I'm just going to, because Megan is the marketing manager, I want Megan to present something about products. We'll make Megan presenter. And here you can add as many people and assign them either producer or presenter, right? So I can add as many people. So I can have, and I could make any new user that I'm adding as either as a backup producer. You should have a backup producer. We'll take a look at that towards the end, but then you could make them a presenter as well. Once you do that, once you're happy with who's going to be part of the event, you can always come back, edit it. We'll take a look at it. But the next screen is an important one. Now, anyone who didn't attend the session I think during lunchtime, Michael was talking about some Teams meeting policies. Some of the settings that you are seeing here are controlled by your admin And so these are some of the default settings, but you could change this and control through your Teams meeting policies from your Teams admin center. As you can see, I can't create Teams live event using a public option because that's been disabled through my Teams admin center. I'm just going to leave it default org-wide, but if you wanted to just have peoples and groups in your org, you could do specific people option as well. But if typically live events would be org-wide for the most part, I'll leave them org-wide for now. That's a default. Now, if you scroll down, there are a couple of things to note. As I said earlier, remember, in the live event, the only way you can interact with your attendees is through Q&A. By default, that's off. Make sure that you turn that on. You could always keep it off during the live event. You have that granular control at the time of the event, but make sure that you have that option if you ever wanted to have Q&A. So make sure that that option is on. Now, recording available to attendee by default is on. I typically like to turn it off because then once the event is over, you probably want to edit something and then going to be blast out to all the attendees later. So I typically, because you leave this on, the meeting's over, recordings be available for everyone. I typically leave it off because it's a formal event for the most part. You would want to make sure that you have an opportunity to review it, edit it as needed, and then provide a recording to the attendees. But it's up to you what you like. And other options, if you're using external app or devices, you're not going to cover today, you will see that option there. But let's just schedule it. Now, once you schedule it, on the next screen, you will see two options. The very first one, the get attendee link. That's the key one because attendees, just like a Teams meeting, don't join using the same link that all the producers and presenters are going to join. Presenters and producers would be getting this join button there, but that's the link that you will be sharing with your attendees. So both are separate links. So if I would click it, and just let me just paste it in my notepad, just so that you see it's a long, and there's one recommendation that I have. That's that attendee link that you will somehow use URL shortener to shorten that and send it to attendees. So that's a link that you would be sending to your attendees. But here, I'm just going to join it using this. But eventually, say if I would close it, let me just temporarily close, for now, close it. You could always come back, just double click, open it, and edit it. You could edit and make any changes that you would like. As long as your event is not started, you could edit all the options that you have selected. Once the event started, you can't change any options there, right? So if you have chosen, so we're just going to leave everything default, just like any meeting joining, you will see join now. So, and as you can see at the top, it says you're joining as a producer. As a producer, this is the screen that you will see. There's two windows, the queue window and the live event window. And I'll explain you how it works. So as a producer, as I said earlier, you're responsible for deciding which content is going to be live. So if you consider this scenario where you have more than one presenter, you could have one content always available live, the other one is already queued, right? So you could queue the content and you as a producer would be able to see what's being queued. And then once you're ready, you will send it to live. So let me see if I can show here. So let's say if I wanted to share that content using this here. So are you guys still seeing my producer window? Just wanted to confirm. Say yes in the chat if you're still seeing that. Okay, I'll just keep, okay, perfect. So here, as you can see that I've shared my content. I could share my video, and if I would turn on my video, I can just, so for now, I'll just simply put it in a queue and then my content goes live into queue, right? So it's not live yet. So as you can see, the very first time as a producer, what I have selected is the content that is available to me. Given the fact that in this live event, I'm the only person sharing the content, that's the only content I have. But if you have one presenter or more than one presenter, as we added other two presenters, if they would join and share their content, those content would be available for me as a producer to put it in a queue window and then send live. So as you can see that it will send live. Now, when it sends live, it's not started yet, because you see, once you send that content to the live event window, there's a button lit up at the bottom, say start. And the moment you press that start, and that's the event is going live for everyone. Everyone's waiting on the other end, because you can't see them, who's there. All you would see is how many attendees join. You don't get to see who, at least for now. You just simply see at the top number of people join the event. So you will always have a good idea as to how many people are already part of this event. But once you're ready, you will click start. Once you click start, and you will see this message that the event can last up to 16 hours, and attendees will watch it at 10 to 20 second delay. So there's a delay. Once I click continue, attendees, it's not just like the team meeting events, like just like you and me are having here, where the moment I press the button, you will see it. Live event is more like a stream. So there's a delay of about 10 seconds, I would say. And that's what you have to keep in mind. And we'll discuss some of those things as part of the discussions. Once I click continue, it's starting the live event right now. So the event gets started now. And at the top, you will see it's live. See that it tells you it's live. And if you ever wanted to end it, you will end. Now, I, as a producer, have option to keep changing my queue window. So if there would be another content that I would be sharing here, other presenter, and that's going to be the next content that attendees would see, that content, you can change it in the queue window. And that doesn't change anything for whatever's being presented live. So that's something you have to keep in mind, that you have a flexibility here where you can decide what goes in the queue. And one thing that at the bottom of the queue, sometimes you wanted to have a video and the content. So if I would turn my video on, I would be able to put that in my video feed. So let's see if I can turn my video on. And here, and then I can just click add video. And then I put my video here, and then I can send that live. And once that goes live, you will see that it's changing there. So these are the things that you can do. And at the bottom, if I would change a single source, but that doesn't change over there until I send it to live. So these are some of the settings or controls that you have as a producer. Now, the last thing before I end the demo, at the very top, as I say, the Q&A, all the options for your meetings is available through the top bar. Here, the first button is show Q&A. By default, because we checked that on, that's on. And what we can do is we can just simply turn it off. If you don't want it, you can turn it off right now. And whenever you're ready, you can just have it open. Now, once you open Q&A, it doesn't mean that users posting a question goes live. Actually, once you open it, it gives users opportunity to post a question. You as a producer would have option to see what questions are getting posted. Do you want to publish them or not? You can always reply to those questions one-on-one directly and not publish them. But if you think that the question would be useful for all the other attendees, you will post them, and then you will publish them, and then everyone would see them. Then at the end, you will answer them. So you have granular control over how you want to control your Q&A. Anything aside from Q&A, so as you see at the top, there's 3 buckets: new, published, and dismissed. As I say, some of the questions, you just simply reply one-on-one and then dismiss them. But make sure that whoever's controlling the questions, keep this new window or new bucket clean, because otherwise it would be very hard to just know which questions been already taken care of, especially for the bigger events, right? Now, anything other than that, like other than Q&A, everything is internal to this producers and presenters. So the right beside is meeting notes. There's a new feature that you can take notes. Someone can take notes while producing an event. The chat. Now this chat is only between producers and presenter. Once the event started, ideally my recommendation is to use chat. Now chat, as I said, is not with the attendees, it's just between the producers and the presenters. And here you will see all the attendees, and again, same thing. You will see other presenters, producers, who joined, who didn't join. So as you see, we invited to, and they haven't responded yet. So some of these settings you can see here, and I'm just going to wrap it up just by clicking the leave. Once you leave, the event stays on. I highly recommend that once you're done, you stop sharing and then you end the meeting. Once the meeting has been ended, you can't restart it. So live events, as opposed to the Teams meeting, can only be started once. And once it's started, once you press end, it's just ended. You can't just restart the meeting again. So we're just going to end it here and go back to our slide deck. See. Okay, so we talked about some of these things. I just wanted to show you. So this is the presenter view. So presenters would see this as to what's queued, and they will also see Q&A. When it comes to Q&A, here's all the questions will be posted. But one thing that I want to show you, towards the end of the event, once the event is over, you will have option to get all the reports. You will get the recording downloaded from the meeting invite itself, or and the Q&A report, attendee engagement report, who joined, and when they started the event, and they ended, things like that. You will be able to download them all here. Some of the recommendations given last 10 minutes, as I said, make sure that presenters and producers must use the desktop app. As of today, while I'm presenting, I make sure that your presenters and producers must use Windows or Mac Teams app. I know for a fact that by February, because I did see this on my message center the other day, the support for the Mac is definitely, the tablet is coming. But for now, if you join using mobile or web experience, it's not supported currently. It will force you to join as an attendee. Attendees can join using any platform. So attendees can join using either the web, the mobile, or any other means to join the event. So keep that in mind, because most of the VIPs or executives would like to join using their iPad Pros, and that's not supported right now. So keep that in mind. Make sure it's always necessary to define your roles ahead of time. Anyone who has not used this before, it's important that you have a primary producer and the secondary producer. Now, it is also important to note that if you have two producers, because you should keep the backup producer, because if I'm only producer and my network is not working or not cooperating, your event's not happening. So you should always have a backup producer, because if you only have one producer role, and if their network goes down, your event goes down as well. So make sure there is a backup producer. But when it comes down to backup producer, you're not sharing the role. You clearly define who has the control, and the backup producer's role is just as a backup, just in case, because when I, as a primary producer, change something on my screen, the backup producer doesn't see that change until it goes live. So that's just everything that I was showing you was local to me, not local to all the producers. So that's something that you need to understand as well, that you define the role and define who has the control, right? And then presenters, who's presenting, who's answering questions, things like that, sort it out well before the event gets started. Again, if you're new to this, make sure, and even if you're not new to this, you dry run, you rehearsal, like you practice which tools you would be using as a producers and presenters. And as we saw, that you could only start live event once, so you may need to be careful. Now, reliable network is the key. I highly recommend a wired network, but if you're confident on your Wi-Fi, that's fine too. But as I say, your network can make or break your event. Publishing a question, as I say, I typically, based on my experience, I would let attendees ask questions while the event is on. Why? Because then if I think that question is important for everyone else to vote on, I would just publish them. So I can publish all the questions and let people like those questions, right? Or you can actually provide some sort of interaction by liking, right? Like you can say, okay, I also have the same question, or I want to like to know the answer for that question as well. You can like them. What you could do is, when you're looking at all the questions, you can sort them by likes. Unfortunate part is its sort is ascending. So you need to, once you sort them by likes, go all the way to the bottom and then start from the bottom if you wanted to answer most like to the least likes. But I like to do that. I like to publish these questions ahead of time. And once you publish it, all the attendees would see those questions and they can then interact with this question by liking or not. And I like that option better, because then I'm at least, given the time constraints, I can take care of the questions that are most liked, that most users were interested in knowing the answer. So I always use this option. But whatever you decide, make sure you either publish or you dismiss it. Keep your new window or bucket clean. Also, it's important to remember, as I said, the video is being decided by your producer and the content's been decided by your producer. Audio at any given time is live. So while my producer is deciding what content, which content going live, which video is going live, and if someone speaks something, that's live. That's not controlled by your producer. So make sure that everyone understands it and keep themselves muted, because if you're not muted and you just, something happens at your end, like someone says something, don't assume that it's not live. The audio is always live. Producers cannot control the audio. So that's something that's very important. I've seen this many times, that people not realizing that whatever's audio is there is always live. Live event, the meeting, you should always start early, at least 30 minutes ahead of time. Final check, make sure everyone understands their role. And as I say, make sure who has the control. And one thing that I've learned, because as I say, attendees can't see what's happening on the other side. It's just like two separate worlds. So you should always have your slide deck. The very first slide is if something along the line like event will start soon, and let your producer start the live event, and by publishing that content, basically everyone's muted. The only content that is going live is the first slide, and that is event will start soon. So at least attendees see, because otherwise they see your event has not started yet, and they have no idea that what's happening. At least that having a message there with the slide, that event will start soon, that they will know that, okay, it's going to start sometime soon. So make sure that you use some of those options. As I say, remember that the broadcast is delayed by at least 10 seconds. So something like, I'm saying, does anyone have any questions? And if there's no question posted for 5 seconds, don't wrap up the event. Make sure you have some talking points, because when you say someone has a question, they won't hear it at least until 10 seconds. And after that, they will start typing. So make at least have about 30 seconds or a minute before you start seeing some questions, if no one has posted any questions. So because whatever you're saying is not just live, so consider that as well. Now, if the producer, in case where there's more than one presenters, what I've seen is producer ended up running the slide deck, right? Because you don't want to switch between who's sharing the content, who's sharing the desktop. So what they do is typically ended up having just one presentation, and one presentation would be shared by producer. If that's what you're doing, make sure your producer has at least 2 monitors, because one monitor would be occupied by content that is shared, but your producer also needs another monitor to control the event, to decide which content is going live, whose video is going live. So that's something that you need to remember, that you probably would go and then decide, yeah, that's what we're going to do. But if there's only one monitor, it would be very hard to control and share at the same time for the producer. And I think the last thing that I would recommend everyone, that whenever you're sending a link to your live event to your attendees, use some sort of URL shortener. Like, you don't want to send that live big link to the attendees. And more than the attendees, I know we can always put a text and then put a link behind it, but using some sort of URL shortener like bit.ly or something that you use internally, it will give you flexibility to change your webcast or your town hall to something else. So I'll give you an example. If you decided that your event is going to be using live event, and on the day off, for whatever reason, there's some outage or technical issues with the teams, you want to switch it to some other meeting, say Zoom, for example. It would be harder, right? Because if you haven't used some URL shortener, it would be harder. But if in the back end, all you're doing is just simply going and changing, would be much simpler. So I've learned it for the important event, the formal big events. Always don't use the actual URL. I would recommend using some sort of URL shortener and then use that instead. With that, I'm at a mark. I hope this was useful. As you typically, I would cover quite a bit on admin side as well, but just to make sure that to respect everyone's time, I'm just going to wrap it up now. But if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. So feel free to post a question. And I don't know if the slide piece, I'll try my best to figure that out. And typically the slides are available through the website itself, SPS event. So when you go to all the presentation, the content, once I finish it and I upload it, all the content would be available right beside the presentation. But if not, I'm sure Ryan would figure something out to share with everyone. Okay, no questions? Okay, so I'm just going to wrap it up. I would like to thank everyone for attending. I hope this was useful and you find some valuable information as part of this session. And I hope to join you guys at the wrap up or closing remarks. Thank you.